future of video distribution is being driven by the cord cutters. In other words, the reason that there's so much of a question mark out there right now is because of this change that's occurring among the pay TV operators, the broadcasters, and the cord cutters. Now, just to make sure we got our definitions correct, when I say cord cutters, I also mean video that's delivered by way of internet. It's also being called over the top. So when you hear video by internet or over the top and cord cutters, those are all synonyms for this transition to other forms of video content. And it's threatening the status quo. I've got a couple slides here that I think are pretty remarkable, and they're going to give you a feeling for that. Once again, my company is the Carmel Group. We're located in Carmel, California. We're about 20 years old, and we do mostly conferences, publishing, and consulting. Our session today involves Steve Oetegenn, a Chief Marketing Officer for Verimatrix. They're in the conditional access side of the business, so he'll have some very interesting perspectives on legal and technical ways that we try and protect this content. And then Fearghal Kelly from ioko, who is here as a vice president representing his view of the world, and he'll give you a little bit of explanation. ioko is right back here, by the way. This is their booth back here, so if you get a chance as you transition out of this area, go give them a view. They'll give you a good story. And then the last person here I asked to speak on this at the last minute because I thought it made a lot of sense. I know he's very articulate. I know he gets along really well with people, and he's gotten a lot of view for what this industry is. He now works as a business analyst, brand new in the community. So I think he can relate from the generation of the cord cutters, especially the young ones, as to what works and what doesn't work and why it's all happening. This is a slide that I got a hold of at the Over the Top conference. Once again, over the top being synonymous with cord cutting. This was held actually this is the set-top box conference in San Jose in September, but it was very much the same theme. Over the top, set-top boxes, they're all dealing with the same thing. But this is a great slide because it shows the transitions that have taken place from analog era to digital era to the internet era between cable, satellite, telco, and over the top. And so I bring this to give you an idea that there are real segments of this industry that have changed and are changing, and I think this slide does a really good job of showing where those are. So hopefully you've gotten a chance to look at it. At the end of the session, if you want to get a copy of these slides, let me know and I'll email them to you. This is TV in the future. It's not your grandmother's or your grandfather's TV. It's TV that is so different you won't even recognize it if you compare it, say, 5 years ago to 5 years hence. And it involves all of these things that we're talking about: social networking. It involves getting signals from broadcast, pay TV, satellite, internet. You're just going to have so many variations. You're not going to have remote controls anymore. You're going to have tablets with software that are going to guide you through everything. And that's part of why I had Cory come up here as well. But the point is, TV as we know it is gone. It's literally gone, and more of you are going to start to feel that and appreciate that in your own homes. This is a fascinating data point that I also got from the set-top box conference. And the key to this, the reason I got it, is purple. Do you see the purple right there? The purple is the future of internet video and how it's going to take over what happens in the internet traffic arena. And so you're going to have a lot more file sharing. You're not going to have much of anything else, but you're going to have a huge growth in internet videos. This is a slide that was presented by Cisco at the Over the Top conference. And then the last three of these slides, which I brought to you today to give you a feeling for why this is such an awkward transition in over the top. And it has to do with the power brokers. So look at this slide. 7 pay TV operators, and you know all these operators, they service probably everybody in this room. They supply almost 90% of US subscribers. And you start at the bottom with the big one, which arguably is going to get even bigger now that it's taken over NBC Universal, and you just work your way up and you see that those suppliers right there are handling between them about 90 million subscribers today. The next slide, same idea. 7 content providers supply almost 90% of US video viewed today. And of course, this is a little bit old. Comcast now has merged with NBCU, so that's actually 21%. They're just behind Time Warner. But one thing I want you to note here real quickly as we get into the introductions of the panelists, notice Comcast there and Time Warner, okay? Time Warner and Comcast are important to note here because, note here, content providers, Comcast and Time Warner. Your final slide, the internet service providers, 7 of them service more than 75% of US users, Time Warner and Comcast. So my point here is these big companies control the industry as we see it today. They have a lot to lose. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Fearghal Kelly. Fearghal, by the way, is, and I wrote it down so I could make sure I didn't forget it, the Vice President of Media Solutions for his company located in the United Kingdom.
Thank you. Ioko, as opposed to Ioki.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you fix it.
Yeah.
It's been around for about 15 years. We're a media systems integrator. We build video distribution platforms for over-the-top provision of video and audio for people like Uverse, News Corporation, and various broadcasters in the UK. Interestingly, for some of you, as of about 3 hours ago, we're now part of the Kit Digital group globally.
So that's some news.
That's breaking news. We have a member of Kit Digital in the audience for anybody interested in finding out a bit more. Okay. We've been building these platforms for about 6 years now, over the top. And I think initially what started out as a defensive move for some of the pay platforms has turned into a cash revenue positive generating thing, and they're building new audiences with these platforms.
Okay, great. Can you tell me just real briefly, now you're talking about your ownership change, what's that going to mean for your company? How's that going to change your life and your business?
You know, if I'm honest, it's going to be business as usual for us. There's a great synergistic fit. You know, it's a stereotypical word, and I apologize, but Kit comes with a fantastic set of products and services. We come with a large group of professional services people who are expert at building broadcast video distribution platforms. So, in principle, we should grow bigger and maybe take one of those pieces of the pie.
Okay. And can I assume that, like many mergers, it's going to provide you with more resources, deeper pockets to do what you do well?
Yes, I think that's probably fair to say. At the end of the day, Kit Digital are quoted on the stock market, okay, and have access to that investment cash if needed.
Great. Steve Oetegenn, you are the Chief Marketing Officer for Verimatrix, not your traditional company in that you're not a content provider, you're not an ISP, you're not a service provider. Instead, you are a?
We're a conditional access content protection and DRM company. We're based in San Diego, California, and we have around about 450 pay TV operators in around about 52 countries that use our product to secure the delivery of their content and also monetize their content. Our roots are in so-called telco TV. That's before IP became the buzzword. When telcos started to get into the pay TV business, some of our bigger customers are Belgacom with over 1 million subscribers. And more recently, we've been making more moves into traditional DVB and broadcast technology, also hybrid technologies. And so I believe we have a pretty good picture of what's going on in that industry.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker, I brought him onto this panel, one, because he works, or primarily because he works. And I apologize for the tad bit of nepotism, but I think when you hear him speak, you understand why I want him to be on this. He also has a bit of a good background in the sense that he's been around the university community for the last 5 years. He just got his MBA from the University of Denver. Plus, he's traveled a lot, and he's been in a lot of team environments because he's formerly a Division I lacrosse player. So with that, Cory, please tell us a little bit about the 24-year-old perspective on cord cutting.
I think my dad gave myself a little too much credit there, but yeah, my name is Cory Schaeffler, and I'm a business analyst working for Technicolor, more specifically in the Media NAB department. And the first question my father asked me when asking to be on this panel was cord cutting happening within my generation, within the last 5 years I've been in college, and now when I've moved out and I live with 3 24, 25-year-old roommates. And the answer to me is yes, cord cutting is happening in this regard. I believe Ivan Seidenberg, the CEO of Verizon Wireless, said it correctly. My generation is smart enough to not pay for something that's not going to provide, something that they don't need. But I'd like to tailor that a little more and say my generation's not going to pay for something that doesn't provide significant value to their life right now. And I feel like this is something that my generation is realizing with the pay TV operators out there nowadays is the average monthly bill of $75 providing that significant value with other resources that are out there to get media content. And I think some of my friends are questioning that. And this is where it's been exciting to be working with Technicolor, specifically in our Media NAB department, because we're working with operators right now to provide that significant value. If you're wondering specifically what Media NAB is, it's a second screen EPG electronic program guide. And what we're primarily focusing at Media NAB on is looking into social networking, for example. My Facebook page has turned into a media hub. Almost all the posts on my Facebook page are, Cory, check out this new YouTube video. Cory, have you seen the new Kanye West music video? Hey, did you see the latest Spartacus or Entourage episode? It was hilarious, or something along those lines. So creating a media-specific identity within the pay TV operating system, I think, is going to be crucial to creating that specific value. Furthermore, I think providing that secondary screen approach, EPG, is going to be extremely important because, especially for my generation, we grew up with touchscreen iPhones, now with tablets. Furthermore, we grew up with gaming consoles that push this over-the-top content. Just recently, actually 2 weeks ago, I was sitting with my 2 roommates, and I was working on something on the secondary screen on my laptop for work, and I told one of my roommates, I said, hey, look up on demand if Spartacus is playing, the most recent one. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know how to do that. And I truly believe it's because you're dealing with these dinosaur-based remote controls, and it's difficult to guide through the certain EPGs out there. So, having the ability to search through these secondary screens, things we grew up on, and being able to access multiple over-the-top content from your operating systems, I feel like you'll see this more. You'll see operators allowing you to see YouTube clips. You're going to see operators providing over-the-top services of the sort. Furthermore, Media NAB is offering and working with providing advanced search and recommendation features. One of the key advantages of Netflix is how easy it is to get certain recommendations. All my friends love the fact that Netflix aggregates this information and pushes out certain things, saying, oh, you liked The Rock, an old Sean Connery movie. Well, you're going to like these older action movies as well. Media NAB is working with operators to be able to provide those certain recommendations to people. So, yeah, it's been exciting within the industry. I truly believe that this cord cutting, if pay TV operators do not take the right advances in providing, new value for their pricing structure, then cord cutting will increase at significant rates. But it's a problem that I believe all of us will solve and work around, and see some real advantages within the operating system.
Getting ready for this session, I went through multi-channel news, which I like to read to stay up on the industry, and I recommend it highly to all of you if you haven't seen it before. In this, there's an article in here about one of the most topical situations that's going on right now involving cord cutters, and that's the Time Warner Cable dispute with the programmers about the iPad. And if you're not familiar with it, basically what's going on is you've got the iPad applications, and Netflix has a tool there, an application that makes it easier for people to watch a Netflix movie on their iPad. And Time Warner came along and they saw the competition and they said they wanted to do one very much like it. Well, all of a sudden Discovery and Viacom and a couple of other programmers said, no, you can't do that. And so what I wanted to ask our gentlemen, and I think I'm going to start with Steve from Verimatrix, how does this fit into the whole scenario? What is this going to tell us about cord cutting?
Good question. First and foremost, I think cord cutting is a bit of a misnomer because what you're actually doing is cord switching in general. You're switching from HFC coax maybe to a Cat5 connection. So you're just getting your entertainment or your TV from through a different transport medium. But ultimately, the people that are controlling that new cord are the same people that were controlling your HFC coax, right? So if you're with a cable company, then the cable company is probably still your internet service provider, and they're making money on supplying you with internet access. There's been talk of limiting bandwidth, which is going to cause a huge uproar because, you know, just basically somebody has to pay for it, and ultimately, again, there's no free lunch. The same goes for the content that is available on the so-called cord cut services at present. I don't think you see premium HD movies available over the top. Probably you will in the future, but in order to get the content owners comfortable with allowing that type of content to be put out over the pretty much open internet, they need to be comfortable that it's going to be protected and that they're able to monetize that content. Because, again, it's great to be able to view The Rock. Somebody got paid a lot of money to make that movie, and the studios like to recoup their money when they make movies to enable them to make more good movies. So I think coming back to the original question, which is what do we think of the iPad issue, I think the content owners need to get real. Unless they want to have the same thing happen to them as what happened to the music industry when they tried to buck the trend of online music and music sharing, make it accessible to people. Apple basically showed the music industry how you can do that. Apple ended up making a lot of money out of it, at least. But also make it easy to find, easy to navigate, and get used to the fact that people's viewing habits are changing. But the reality is that people are watching more video. It's not that video consumption is decreasing or that it's shifting to different media. Take the example of my young colleague next to me. My 15-year-old daughter doesn't watch television on a TV anymore. She watches it on her Mac, okay? But I still watched the Masters on my HD set yesterday because I didn't want to watch it on a small screen. So you need to tailor your offering, and you need to ensure that the offering you have is actually what the consumer wants. Because if you don't provide what the consumer wants, then they're going to find other ways to get it. And generally, those are ways that are actually illegal and end up costing a lot of people a lot of money.
Fearghal, tell us a little bit about it from your side of the world or your side of the big pond.
Okay. I think for starters, the whole cord cutting description debacle debate, it's a bit of a misnomer because cord cutting has been around since people started charging for cable TV in the very first place. It's churn. It's churn, but by a 21st century name. There's a couple of ways you can take a look at it. Nobody likes churn. You try and keep churn low. You try and reduce churn, and you try, wherever possible, to extend your audience. All that's happening with this latest churn threat, cord cutting, is people looking at the economic cost, as Cory said, and saying that there is a cheaper alternative. So it's one component of your overall churn problem. 6 years ago, the platforms in Europe started looking at this and said, this is potentially a threat, but maybe there's a way we can combat it. And 5 years ago, they decided that they would invest in TV everywhere, much as is happening now with Comcast and Time Warner. And initially, it was a defensive thing. It was reduced churn, or at least maintain churn at a steady rate, and you get a return on investment that way. 5 years on, that investment is now reaping benefit because it's extending the audience. So if your physical limitation now is the zip code that you happen to live in, that you're licensed to distribute content in, well, that physical limitation is gone. And that means you can extend your audience and your reach and generate genuine new revenue. And that's what's beginning to happen in Europe right now. So I would take that learning and apply it here. It means that graph you have is it's going to shift and expand, and people are going to take customers off each other. But again, if you look at the simple economics of it, you can go out and buy an Xbox. You can see it on our stand, or a PlayStation 3, or an Apple TV. And for $300 in your first year, you can watch one brand new blockbuster movie a week for a whole year. Following year, it's going to cost you $160. So the return on investment, even at a consumer level, it's a fantastic business case. So it's going to happen, and as long as the platform operators embrace it, do something about it, they won't lose audience, and they might even grow it. Do nothing, and yeah, their little slice of the pie is going to shrink to nothing.
I don't know if many of you following what's been happening on the content side of the over-the-top or internet video marketplace, but within the last couple of weeks, the big player in the over-the-top marketplace, Netflix, had an opportunity to bid for, and did in fact win the bid for $100 million worth of a new TV program with 26 different segments starring Kevin Spacey, called House of Cards. All of a sudden, you've got a new HBO in the business. And I want to ask our three gentlemen, what do you think about that? Does that change the whole playing field, or is that less significant than I think it is? Why don't we start with Cory?
I believe it is extremely significant, like you were saying. One question I asked a gentleman at the OTT conference in San Jose a couple weeks ago was, what happens when HBO comes out with their own Netflix-like subscription where you can download this on a TV and you get your multiple HBO episodes played out? That what I believe would create some huge controversy within the pay TV operators is if Showtime Stars and HBO came out with these applications that pushed all of their content in an easy $9.99 offering of the sort. And his response is, that's something that can take place. It only takes the money to entice them. It only takes a Samsung, an LG, a Philips to say, yeah, we're going to create your application and star it on our new interactive TV. So yes, I believe that this content being pushed out it's a big step. I think you're going to see a lot more with Netflix, the content deals being the key criteria on their success. You're seeing it with Stars. They're limiting their 90-day. It's something along the lines of 90 days of original content that can be played out. They'll have to wait 90 days, Netflix subscribers. And it's content deals. Content is still king within the operator system. So it's gonna play out a lot.
So Steve, in your view, is Netflix's House of Cards a house of cards, or is it real?
Well, it's real. It's real, but as he said, content is king, right? And he who has the gold rules, and the gold is the content. Having one set of episodes isn't the game changer we might think it is. Netflix got in with the streaming rights very, very early in the game, and they didn't pay relatively much money for the streaming rights. But bear in mind that the stuff you really want to watch isn't available on streaming, because they only have limited streaming rights for that as well. But what it does do is it gives the consumer more freedom of choice. And I think the days of having to subscribe to 100 packages or 100 different channels in one package, they're limited. And I think the whole landscape is going to shift towards a la carte programming. And just looking at that slide again, 7 content providers supply 90% of the content. There's the gold, right? They're the ones calling the shot, and Comcast is, is also a cable provider, right? So they really have a lot of leverage to be able to change the game themselves and to combat the threats of the up and coming new generation.
Fearghal.
I think the question is related to your last one too, about the cable companies and the argument about the iPad app. Now, the simple thing was, if they paid for it up front, they wouldn't be having this argument now at all. And again, that's just down to getting their checkbook out, pay for the content to be on that platform or device, and the problem's gone. That problem was solved in the UK with that exact same process. You cut a deal with the content unions, PACT, and then you can put your content on any platform. I think we all know unique premium content drives platforms, and certainly if you're in that business as an operator like Netflix or even a Hulu, whoever can pay the most money to get exclusivity of that content, you're going to drive eyeballs to your platform. It's simple maths.
As it relates to your business, Fearghal, if you think of something in the whole over-the-top cord-cutting area that scares you, what is that one thing that scares you? And none of these questions have been pre-prepared, so we're giving them a chance to react.
I think if you look at the way the TV audiences are distributed on that model, you've got cable companies now who are highly experienced in doing live TV distribution, take it out of the air off a satellite and relay it on a hybrid network. So now they're looking at this saying, well, we can use that same network and that same topology to do TV everywhere. We'll deliver content, that same content, to any device using technology that we'll own and control. And if that happens, then we move back to a kind of proprietary, odd technology type world where innovation is a bit slow and consumer is not necessarily best served. It becomes a closed network. And I think anything that preserves a walled garden is a bad thing, because this is all about opening it up to give you content when and wherever you want.
Steve.
Well, clearly, if everybody decided tomorrow they didn't need content protection and content security, we'd be out of a job. But joking aside, I think they need to find a way to merge these type of services, right? There are too many silos, too many different ways to get content, and it's a scary thought moving down the road if it does end up being the wild, wild web where people, can just download any content they want, they can consume any content they want, and it becomes kind of second nature not to have to pay for good content. Because, as I said, we all like to watch good movies, we all like to watch good premium live sports. These sportsmen make a lot of money, justifiably so. But it's all the economics of things. If you allow it all to just be for free, and the perception that it's for free and unprotected, then I think it's a sad day for the entertainment, the video entertainment industry as a whole.
So, Cory, let me throw this at you. Do you see a Comcast buying a Netflix or a Hulu or an Amazon in order to stifle this whole competition?
I would have to maybe not buy a Netflix specifically or an Amazon. Do I see these cable operators looking to push OTT delivery systems? Yes, I see that being an option. More advanced video on demands I see coming out with more, but I also see, like you were saying, TV everywhere and over-the-top delivery system from these cable operators. I think this could happen, and that's actually something that I heard at this OTT conference as well, is multiple people were saying that's the trend that they see taking place, is in the future, OTT services will be offered by these cable networks. But along with what you were saying before is the nightmarish thing that I see as well is the pirated videos. And I speak to that in a generational piece because, I've seen friends who have these pirated applications, have this pirated video. And, in all honesty, my generation is pushing the whole idea that they feel like content is free. They really do, and they have these short tail clips that they can get from Sports Center applications. My generation, has pirated, movies that it's so easy to tell your friend, go to this website, get it, you're not going to get in trouble. And that's been the mindset of my generation, and it is frightening. And now that I've gone into the industry, I'm like, oh God, that is something that's extremely scary for my generation, is the ability and the mindset that content should be free.
Yeah, when it hits your own belt, it's a little more meaningful.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's come back across, and I think, Robert Bell, are we ending up, or can we go a little longer? Okay, we're going to go to the opposite question. Fearghal, you look at over the top, you look at cord cutting. What excites you? What do you really like about it? I think you hinted at it before.
Remind me.
The openness of it?
Yes, of course. At the end of the day, a lot of this change is not being driven by studios saying we want this problem, because it's a hassle and a headache and it's going to cost money. It's being driven by innovation through the consumer electronics manufacturers. Okay, so they're driving change, and as a result, consumers are now pushing the rate of change. It's what they want to do now, not what the studios are going to tell you do. Not the EPG or schedule of content that you are told when to watch and what to watch. Consumers are voting with their feet and their eyeballs what they want to do and when. And I think that's the best bit of it. It is genuinely open. It's consumer-led. It's delivering value to the consumer for the first time in a very long time.
Okay, great. And Steve, let me ask that same question, but a little bit differently. What will be good that happens in the next 5 years as it relates to cord cutting?
If they were able to have platforms that would, right, if you look at it today, even for the younger generation, if they need, or they decide to try to get a cable service equivalent over the top, it's quite a daunting task. You sometimes need special hardware. You need special boxes. You have to go to different websites. If we could just embrace the whole thing and get used to the fact that it's here and it's here to stay, and start to make it a more user-friendly experience, right? I'm sure plenty of people most people would be prepared to pay good money for good content, right? The problem is right now, there's pushing and pulling, and nobody really knows what the outcome's going to be. And so a lot of people are kind of holding back. There's nervousness about the legality of some of the content they're getting access to, right? Just get it all together and make it a really seamless experience for the average household, right? And let's not forget, there's a big wide world outside of the United States that has different consumption models, very different consumption models to the U.S. And many countries haven't even transitioned to digital TV yet, all right? So they're probably going to leapfrog the last 5 years or so. And if we can find a really seamless experience for those people, I think you'll find that they'll be quite happy. Well, nobody's happy to pay money, I guess, but they won't mind paying reasonable money for the content that they want to watch at the time they would like to watch it, as opposed to having 100 channels rammed down their throats at scheduled times.
Right. So be responsive to consumers' needs.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. So Cory, 2 things your boss focuses on today and why. And before your final comment, this is the last question we'll go through, and then we'll swing back through and we'll have closing comments. 2 things your boss focuses on as it relates to cord cutting and why.
Okay. Kind of wish these were given questions beforehand. Specifically on cord cutting, I think, like I touched on before, the secondary screen adoption, the ability to access all of this content on your secondary screen, and just how easy it is to get that content on a secondary screen. It's 3 clicks of a button and you're watching a movie on Netflix on your iPhone or your tablet, and I think that's one of the key things that Greg Gudorf, my boss, Senior Vice President at Media Navi, is focusing on. He's focusing on that. And then, in particular, in terms of cord cutting, I think one of the benefits, and was something that he sees, is cord cutting is making cable TV and the operators better at what they do. Okay. And I think that's exciting him. That's exciting Technicolor to work with operators because, as I was saying, you've seen it with Time Warner, you've seen it with Time Warner Cable, you've seen it with Comcast, you've now seen it with Cablevision, and people are getting excited about these new kind of answers to over-the-top content production. I believe I read that Cablevision's iPad application was the number 2 or 3 most downloaded free application within the first 5 days that it was deployed. That's an exciting fact, and it's making cable TV, as I was saying, better at what they do. And they're having to answer the calling to these new challenges in over-the-top content.
Great. Okay, Fearghal, would you close us up with a final comment on cord cutting? Maybe a prediction of some kind.
Yes, I will try. I think I said before, cord cutting is just churn by another name. And how you address it, how you solve that problem is going to define what your business looks like 10 years from now. And basically, as long as you embrace it and work with it, put TV everywhere out there as quickly as possible, grow your audience, you can make more money. So I would guess every cable company in the world 10 years from now will look very much like an over-the-top company. I think that's one, if you want a prediction. The second thing is it's consumers and consumer electronics companies who are driving the rate of change now, not cable companies and not studios. They don't like it and they might restrict it, but they're not driving the rate of change.
Okay. From a Verimatrix and a Steve Oetegenn point of view, some final thoughts on this, Steve?
Well, cord cutting, as it's commonly called, is here to stay, although I still maintain it's a misnomer, right, because you're cord switching. But it's definitely here to stay, and our traditional cable satellite providers will embrace it. They have the financial clout, they have the tools, they have the content, they have the ability to embrace it. The content providers need to get real and understand that it's here to stay and that they should embrace it before it's too late. Because I'll come back to the young gentleman here, right? The general perception is that this is all free and we shouldn't have to pay for it, and we have to re-educate the youth of today to understand that it can't be free. Otherwise, I think we're going to see some pretty dismal content in the next 10 years unless they're able to actually monetize it.
Okay, thank you, Steve, from Verimatrix. Cory, from 24-year-old point of view, a spokesman for your generation, and from a Technicolor point of view, some final thoughts.
Yeah, that's a lot of point of views. But yeah, I think, as I was saying in the beginning of my introduction, cord cutting, I believe, will take place. I think, like Steve was saying, we need to teach my generation that content isn't free. You can't just go ahead and get your ESPN application and download all of that free content. You can't go on and just download the HBO Entourage episodes anymore. People need to pay for this, or the content isn't going to be worth watching anymore, because content providers aren't going to push the money because they're not receiving the money from it. But it's interesting to see this transition taking place. It's been exciting for me, being an analyst, being able to research this kind of information, because I don't think anyone really knows where this is going. You can see the CE manufacturers pushing their live guide and their search capabilities on internet, and tying them into operator systems as well. So you have all these different realms and all these different business models playing in this new ecosystem that really no one knows about. So it's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. I don't think any of us could specifically answer the question and say cord cutting, cord splicing, cord thinning is going to take place in this direction or not. But it's going to be exciting to see how people adapt. And all in all, I think it's going to be better.
If you were to look at the history of television going back 50 or 60 years, and you were to look at the major transitions like black and white to color, analog to digital, to DirecTV, satellite delivered television, to over the top, you could look at those 7 or 8 major transitions as bullets. And they were bullets in the sense that you knew who was impacted, you knew how long it was impacted, and you knew what the ultimate result was going to be. This change, for the first time ever, is like a big shotgun blast, because nobody knows who's going to be impacted. Nobody knows how many pellets are in that gun right now, and nobody knows how it's going to end up. So what I would advise people who are in this industry, whether you're on the broadcast side, the software side, the hardware side, the pay TV side, the content, the ISP side, watch it carefully. Read your trades. Go to sessions like this. Talk to your colleagues, because there's a lot of change ahead. And with that, would you please help me to thank our panel?